Hello, YouTube friends. This is an alert. I suppose I could call this an alert to what a lot of YouTubers are experiencing in terms of what they consider to be a truth community of some kind. Something that is happening on YouTube that is considered to be factually in some form truths that are being presented. And then there is a contingency of channels that are fundamentally set up, operating through a directive or even a personal desire to minimize, diminish, attack, undermine, hurt, cause suffering in people for saying certain things. This is something that seems to be quite prevalent. I keep coming across this, and I've had my own experiences with YouTube, other YouTubers that appear to be just an individual with a channel that is out to get you. They're out to get you. They're always waiting for the next video you're going to produce and then to hammer you. And I was listening to a fabulous YouTuber. I really love this woman, Carol from Neverlosetruth. She is presenting us with incredibly viable information about the California fires as being possibly energy-directed weapons that are directing these fires. And I have no doubt in my mind that there is such nastiness going on all around us, which is covered up, what I've always said, by a veneer of behavior that is called culture. Culture is just a very thin veil over what it, historically speaking, even, I don't need to go back that far, you can go back far, there's a hell of a lot of hurt associated with this thin veneer called culture, which means that the benefits we might have from this experience of civilization and culture is actually very minimal as far as our experience of being hurt is concerned. And YouTube is part of this culture, a veneer that pretends to be a certain way, but in fact, a lot of things are going on underneath that get people upset, like Carol. Carol was talking about someone ridiculing her. Imagine that, ridiculing someone for having an idea that is very plausible. In my mind, it's very plausible, so it makes me think about stuff. And I'm not going to talk primarily about what I feel to be on a superficial level. I'm much more interested as my nature demands for me to be connected to something that is fundamentally important to me. And if you're watching a YouTube presentation by anyone, whether it's absolutely brilliant off the chart or just some, I don't know, meaningless add-on to your day-to-day existence, there is an aspect in terms of my own self where I change in some way within me that it becomes important. So in other words, if you are watching someone's presentation and you click it off and you go on with the rest of your life, it's basically entertainment, people. You are getting entertained. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment, except when you talk about the destruction of all life on this planet, it's rather cynical to just feel entertained by the information. And you have channels that are really quite adept at being able to create epic stories that are just that, epic stories that have no significance to you or me, but then capture our attention with grandiose statements. I'm sort of thinking, I keep picking on this, the religious types that I can feel within the back. There's a lurking feeling always. There is a kind of objective to induce some sense of their dogma into the narrative, whatever their dogma might be. And one of them is the SGT guy, of course, Alex Jones, the fundamental atheist non-believer in anything other than his own meat and potatoes, his own bag of blood. This guy was so completely, totally geared towards selfishness. You can feel this. You can feel this in YouTubers. And I want to a little bit talk about intent in this as well. But what I try to do in my own channel, what my alerts in a sense are, there are real things going on that will affect me. There are things that I observe when people make presentations that actually in some form or other change me in some way. And I think this is very important for people to recognize what is important to us. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be entertained. Go and entertain yourself. Click your YouTube presentations and be entertained. And then if you're a person like, for example, like I mentioned, Carol, as opposed to somebody like the SGT guy who's out there promoting his dogma, he's really intent on having the whole thing collapse. You can just feel this, like Alex Jones was just egging us on. Collapse, collapse, collapse. This, of course, plays into a whole other superstructure that is behind this culture that is a bunch of nasty, as I always say. There is a whole bunch of nasty behind the intent behind the SGT guys, the Alex Jones types, the news media. Everything presents us with fundamentally a notion of pain, suffering, and hurt that is going to occur. If it hasn't occurred to you yet, it will. This is the message. This is something that I find quite insidious, or for me now, it's quite entertaining because I've seen through it. I see the intent behind. There is an intent. We need to focus on what is possibly the intent. So when Carol gets upset about being attacked, and like I say, I've had experience in this, I was rather naive. I came at the nuclear fight, which is our biggest fight. And I will talk about this at the end of this video, how reality imposes itself. Not because, as for example, Carol loves A Plain Truth, and A Plain Truth guy has come out and said Fukushima is a hoax. You see, this is where fundamentally, I mean, people can have their opinion, but that kind of an opinion becomes extremely dangerous and destructive because there is a real world out there that is affecting you and me, whether you want it or not. It's just how it seems to work. I haven't been able to extract myself from this experience, from this existence, the way it's presented, whether it's a fabrication in some sort of gnat's two-celled brain, or whether it's a magnificent, omnipotent being who has created this entire reality the way we experience it. I really don't know. What I do know, however, is that there are fundamentals within our nature, within my nature, that needs to be satisfied. And for me, in order for me to contact this, number one, I need to have a certain amount of clarity about what it is that's important to me, which for me, and I think for other people that share this biology, the inner work, as I say, we need to come to some understanding what it is that really matters to me, what it is that really matters to you in terms of anything that comes at us. And we're bombarded by a lot of stuff every day, but there are certain things that truly have meaning to us, and we could miss it. We could sort of walk past, like a bagman is sleeping on the park bench, and it could be Jesus. And you just sort of walk by and ignore this person, and it's like game over in a certain way, that you've missed the meaning of the universe. You just walk by someone who actually held for you the meaning of the universe, and you just walk by because perception has it such that you say, well, what a loser. I'm just saying, as an example, we cannot be more aware or too much aware of what is going on around us. And it's an indicator about where we are in our own lives. So a reality we perceive is a reflection of what we have done within ourselves to be able to perceive. It's like looking at a painting. I mean, if you look at a painting, different people have different responses and will have insights into what is happening based on their ability to contact something within themselves that creates a sense of meaning, about understanding something. I want to just make this, like I said in the beginning of this video, an alert. on the whole notion, the format, the way this is presented to us. YouTube has been created in order to derail this understanding within us. We're given everything possible. There is a degree of censorship, but I must say, we are capable, able to use this medium for the most part, like myself, giving radical positions on who we are as people. And this often is, again, it's like my channel gets maybe 150, 200 views on average. And I think there is a message, an understanding that I communicate that is actually very significant. I know it in terms of my own experience, what I've understood. And even if you just want to say, okay, Ackerman, you're just a flake going on about Fukushima destroying everything. What do you know? What have you done? There is an amount of work, a body of work that I've created that has virtually nothing to do with the outside world. There is an enormous amount of material that I've produced in my lifetime. I mean, enormous relative to what? I mean, Picasso supposedly produced over or up close to 100,000 art objects in his lifetime. That's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. He must have had a lot of help, and I don't know if I believe this. But Warhol as well, apparently over 100,000 art objects. And Warhol, of course, had a technique whereby he could produce a lot of stuff in a day. But I'm saying there is substance to our opinions, ideas, based on work that we individually do over a lifetime. So if you're a plumber and you know how to solder two joints perfectly, you know that joint won't leak. It's going to be a fabulous, through the experience that this person has had over 40 years, they know what they're doing. And my interest has always been to understand something about the subtlety of color, of shape, of form, and what that means to me in terms of my understanding about a bigger picture. The cosmos as it reveals itself to me in everyday life, it gives me some kind of nuance and, I suppose, a level of sensitivity that I have over the period of time that I've made art. It's given me certain sensitivity, and my antennas go up when I feel, when I sense something of value and meaning to me. The way I understood that Fukushima was a huge problem in the real world, because we haven't done our inner world. But anyway, so the issue about truth on YouTube. Truth, I've always said, is a notion that has been provided to us to entertain us. It has no true, no real value to me. Truth has no value to me. It's a concept. It's something that is put out there like a dogma. Truth can be part of dogma. Like slavery, like the Catholics, the Roman Catholics and Christians generally believed until the middle of the 1800s that slavery was perfectly normal for a Christian to be involved in. You could have chattel people, conscious human beings that can recite poetry and create complex sentences, and I have ideas and have feelings, that there is a certain segment of the population that could just be totally undermined by calling them slaves. This was normal. This was dogma. This was something that was a truth that unfortunately lasted a long time and still exists within the consciousness of people that feel themselves to be a little more equal than someone else. It goes through slavery. Officially may have been declared illegal in the Western world, but it still functions as a kind of prejudice against other people. So these are truths that were accepted that become eclipsed because people realize, hey, this is really ridiculous. We can't hold this position and take ourselves seriously. So this actually is a kind of a nice thing we developed through this. So my alert, and people like Carol who are very upset, and I understand why people get upset when they're attacked for something that they feel is a truth that they've understood, that they've provided to us to share. It's something that I sense from this YouTuber to be quite sincere. And since it's the sincerity that's attacked, not what she's saying, because her danger to this present culture is that someone will recognize what in essence, what a good person this is. The intent behind her words is something that reaches me, as there is a level of sincerity. And she may be wrong on stuff, but it doesn't matter to me because she'll correct it, I'll correct it, we'll fix it that way. But the sincerity behind the words is what's being attacked. That's what I'm trying to say to all those people who feel that they have this kind of, like I felt myself in the events that people that have followed me, if you go back to 2014, I was engaged with Blanche for an event in Calgary, and the undermining that occurred was monumental in terms of my own sense of outrage that my sincerity would be so abused and misused. But this was on some level, whether it comes out of a superstructure of infiltrating people of sincerity and goodwill that are out there on YouTube that are continuously being attacked by not, it doesn't even have to be the sort of PR firms that may have been involved in undermining the people fighting on the nuclear front or are fighting on the nuclear front. It could be just people that have this sense of nasty about themselves and want to propagate it. That's simply it. We can and we will. We can and we will. So we'll create a YouTube channel, call it Connecting Dots, whatever it is, and start attacking because I can. And it feels good. And I'm entertained by my own presentations. I don't give a shit about anybody else out there. I just feel fabulous about being able to destroy, to hurt, to create suffering, and that's how it works. And I'm saying it's not your dogma, conviction, or truth. It's the fact that you're sincere, you're being attacked. And anybody that thinks they're kind of waving the flag of this deep understanding of anything is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And you know, the more pissed off you get, the more joy you give to the people that are going to take you down. It's what is crucial for me is for people to communicate this fundamental inner self, the work that was done on a person, not like pretending and having some image to the outside world. Is what comes through for me is the intent. The intent, the sincerity within a person is that which gives me value and makes me a better person when I see it in others. And it's a shout out to people like Carol, who's obviously very upset about being called a scammer and a liar. Where do we hear this? Scammer, being hoodwinked by people. We're so terrified of being hoodwinked. Why are we so terrified of being hoodwinked? It's okay. Go ahead and be hoodwinked, but fix it. Don't let it go on. It's like Baby Bush said, you can fool me once and shame on you. Fool me twice. Can't get fooled again. Can't get fooled again. Baby Bush had it all figured out. Can't get fooled again. Exactly. So, you know, we go through it in our experience. We have an understanding about ourselves. It's got nothing to do with what anybody else is doing, but we have an integrity within us that through the inner work, we can actually distinguish intent and find and feel the sincerity in another person. So being upset about, and it is upsetting, it goes out into the public domain saying Ackerman is a scammer. Of course that has an effect on me because I'm sensitive. I say, well, how dare they? I'm sincere. But you know what? This is the game. This is the game. Once we enter this platform, we are subject to this game. And I've understood this. And in my case, the attack dogs, as I've called them, are leaving me alone because it didn't work. Because I recognized, and they probably feel that my advocacy on YouTube calling out people to have a conscience again is not a threat, because there is no possibility in this culture for anyone to develop a collective conscience anymore. It's basically each person individually will have the ability, has the ability within themselves to buck this conformity of nasty. This is what I'm saying, and it's not thought of as being important because you see, I've not backed off on the Fukushima issue. I'll finish it off here. There is a reality to this world that I understand to the point to the extent that I am affected by it. So, for example, if you eat a few grams of some really nasty poison, you'll die. This is just the way this reality is set up. The omnipotent being that has given us this incredible gift called life. We exist and we have life. This is phenomenal. This has been given. But there are certain parameters around this. We breathe, we eat, we do the bodily functions. All these things that make us on a physical plane are in play, I don't deny this, which is why I connect this idea of Fukushima as the most epic event in the history of eventness on this planet, because the toxicities will eventually affect us and are affecting us already. The way it has affected the ocean, the way it has affected the cancer rates and heart rates, and the Chernobyl heart and the children, the deformities. This is all documented, and people come. There's a YouTuber, this Craig guy, I don't know, Paul Mobley confronted him. He is out there with his ridiculous Geiger counters, giving some fictitious readings about the toxicities. The fact that he's doing it means it's an issue. You see, people, the fact that people are out there proclaiming it's no big deal makes it actually very serious. This is what I've understood. So when you get attacked by these people, it's because they've understood we're opening up a door that shouldn't be opened. This is what's happening. Otherwise, they leave you alone. Now, in my case, the whole the criminals that are actually taking out our legs, they're chopping us off at the knees, are out there and I have no doubt about this. There is a concerted effort to peripheralize anyone that is bringing this. There's my compressor. That they're going to make sure that where danger is perceived to their existence, and it's an existence on a very myopic scale. I mean, these people are so myopic and concerned about the most irrelevant things, other than the fact this is at the bottom. The intent behind these criminals is to inflict as much suffering as possible. The becoming rich part is a bonus. The sort of trickle down effect of wealth and all the pleasures that you seek and you get satisfied, this is a trickle down effect. The most important part behind these attacks, Carol, is to create suffering, not to take away from the message. The message is merely a vehicle for you to show sincerity. And this is the greatest threat that is perceived by people on YouTube that attack. That your sincerity and your feeling of compassion, your feeling of connection to something that is so vital and important is going to spread to more people. This is my conclusion. So, and quite often, the attacks come on what I consider to be very low-hanging fruit. A person who is very connected to their life force become, in some regard, we perceive them as weak. And this is the biggest mistake that they make, because people that have this conviction within them, that have understood something within themselves as being absolutely important, become, well, quite frankly, they're very courageous. I find this the greatest courage. The courage to care is one of the most difficult. The most difficult task in our lifetime isn't being able to pummel anyone with your abuses and your clubs and your guns and your whatever you have. The ability for us to care is courageous. Our desire to care is the greatest courage that we could ever muster. And people that diminish this, yeah, I rest my case, because there is no attack against something as fundamental as that. You can diminish it, you can ridicule it, you can do whatever you want, but ultimately this is the only thing that ties us to this amazing thing called life, because without this feeling within us that we truly care, there is no life. Kiss it goodbye. It doesn't work anymore. It's over. The game is over, whatever that might be. And I don't consider it a game, but when you look at it from a perspective, when you detach yourself, if you can, I can't really, but I suppose it could be a game like a Quantum of Conscience guy thinks it's a matrix. It could be. I suppose it could be. What is reality anyway? How it is presented to us. The only thing that verifies reality for me is your sincerity.